Rowing has a problem. What, just one, I hear you say? Well, actually, it's a pretty big problem as far as rowing's top administrators are concerned, and FISA President Dennis Oswald, the FISA President-elect Jean-Christophe Hollande, and other administrators have been meeting in Lima in Peru, trying to sort out the answer to what they perceive is rowing's problem. Rowing's problem is how it's perceived by the International Olympic Committee. As a sport, rowing does very well in terms of numbers of athletes at the Olympics. 550 make it the third biggest sport. But the IOC are looking at all sorts of criteria that they measure sports by. Those are measurements used as to whether to keep a sport in the Olympic programme. Remember, they threatened to kick wrestling out and actually got back in again. They made it more attractive. They also use these criteria to decide how much money they give from TV rights to each sport. So rowing's got to be very agile about how it comes in the IOC's measurements. These measurements just came out quite recently, and rowing has had to respond to them. What are these measurements? Number one is gender equality, that is the balance between women and men in various sports. Rowing comes pretty low to the bottom of the table in terms of gender equality. There are only three sports, which is canoeing, wrestling and boxing, that are lower than rowing in the Summer Olympic sports measurement. So the sport has got to change. 64% of rowers are male and only 36% of rowers were female at the London 2012 Olympics. The sport's decided it's got to change and have 60% men and 40% women to reflect, I guess, what's going on in the ground, more and more women taking up the sport. And that seems quite reasonable and push rowing up that table of the IOC's checking if their sport's good or not in the world view. The second measurement is universality, that is how many national federations send crews to compete in the Olympic regatta or in the Olympic sports. Obviously, athletics is right at the top with kind of a couple of hundred. But where does rowing sit? Well, rowing again sits right low down, I think 21st out of 26 in terms of universality. And for FISA and World Rowing, that means they've got to get more nations from across the globe, more from Latin America, more from Africa, more from Asia to compete to try and make the sport of rowing seem more attractive in the IOC's eyes. The IOC use a lot of other measures that might surprise you. The number of hits on national federations' websites, the number of referrals to the IOC website, television viewers, the number of articles in the press, spectators. There are all these sort of definitive measures that have just come out. So rowing's got to compete. What have they done? Well, they've made, I think, some fairly dramatic moves to try and balance up gender and balance up universality. The long and the short of it is that they have kicked out one place for the eights, so the eights go down, men's eights go down from 8 eights at the Olympic regatta to 7, so there will be no small final now for men's eights. Only 5 will go through from the World Championship regatta. If that was the case in 2012, you would have a World Championship, you would have an Olympic qualifying regatta with, what is it, probably 2 eights to qualify from Poland, Netherlands, Ukraine, USA, New Zealand and France. Going to be pretty tough there. They've also found places from the men's quadruples, pretty drastic acts taken to that event, and they've kicked out 3 men's quadruples. That is down from 13 to 10. And again, I think you're going to have a very, very tough qualification in Lucerne for that event. Probably from what I looked at, Ukraine, New Zealand, Switzerland, Estonia, France, Czechoslovakia, Slovenia, and I guess you're probably going to have, you know, maybe 2 places from all those crews. So there's no doubt some European countries are going to suffer. The winners, if there are going to be winners, are women's events. The pairs, women's pairs have gone up from 10 to 15 entries. Women's doubles have gone up from 10 to 13 entries. There are no losers in lightweight men's events, so lightweight men have not had to give any places, if you like, to lightweight women. That's a definite policy decision, which you can or may not agree with, depending on your point of view. Lightweight women's doubles is a really interesting one. That's gone up from 17 to 20. And in an effort to, if you like, keep the sport balanced and attractive, They've really said that for the regional qualification regattas, like for example in South America, the crews that say Argentina can qualify, and they qualify a lot of boats, they can only qualify one men's and one women's crew in men's singles, women's singles, lightweight men's double, and lightweight women's doubles. That's to try and get more countries from those regional qualification regattas, and also from the Lucerne qualification regatta. They've said, okay, we like semi-finals, let's have more of them in the Olympics. So they've kind of feel that they've done something to increase the attractiveness of the sport through semi-finals. But if, you know, from my perspective, I think some of those events probably will have semi-finals that are quite spread out. I think, you know, for example, women's pairs, which will have semi-finals at the World Championships, the difference between first to fourth was round between 12 to sort of 15 seconds. Not particularly televisually attractive, but maybe that's something that will improve in the future. From my own perspective, I think changes had to be made, but specifically, I do feel that the long-term answer for the sport lies in doubling up. I don't see that rowing's going to be able to protect that 550 number. I think it will be under threat, and I think we need more than 7/8 in the Olympics. We need more nations putting crews into that sort of really significant event, and I think that's going to come from encouraging athletes to double up across events, and that will be, I think, the way forward. But for now, these are the changes. They're out for proposals to federations. Federations have to come back very, very quickly because they're going to be submitted to the IOC quite soon. What do you think?